Here's a quick review with what you need to know to work with percentages in this coming unit. So, our first question, what is 89% expressed as a decimal? So this is a pretty simple conversion, much easier than converting a decimal to a fraction. We just start with the number 89%, we take away the percent sign, and then we move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So remember, it's always an invisible point right there. Move it 1 space and 2 spaces, and there we have it. That's our decimal. Now it's your turn. What is 125% expressed as a decimal? Follow the same process and rewind to earlier if you need to. The answer is 1.25. Now our next thing we're doing is dividing the decimals. What is 1.8 divided by 0.25? Now that's pretty confusing, but we can change it. We simply move the decimal point 2 places to the left so that we don't have a decimal point in either of our numbers. And now it's a lot simpler. Once that we do that long division, and if you have trouble with long division, check out the other video on dividing and using decimals for the remainder. But your work should look like this, and we should end up with 7.2 as the answer. Now it's your turn. What's 1.4 divided by 2.5? If you said 0.56, that's correct. So first we moved the decimal point so that it was just 14 divided by 25. And then I wrote it out here. We use this decimal point because we know 25 won't go into 14. So we need to borrow from that, put a 0 up here, and keep adding zeros until we get to where we don't have a remainder or we want to round it off. In this case, we didn't have, it was not a continuing decimal, it was a terminating decimal. Now our next kind of question is, what is 30% of 12, or what is this percent of that number? Now, this actually can be pretty simple once that we change it to decimals. So we need to think of what is 0.3 times 12, or 12 times 0.3. And then all you need to know at this point is how to multiply decimals, which is really quite simple. We just we move the decimal point as many places to the right as we need to, and we keep track of how many times. In this case, we just need to move it 1 time over here to make this 0.3 into a 3. And now this is pretty simple. We're back to first grade. 12 times 3 is going to be 36. But don't stop here, because we moved the decimal point to the right once right here. We now need to move it to the left in our answer to make up for that. So we end up with 3.6. Now it's your turn. What is 4% of 28? All right, so you should have went through this process. 4% is the same as 0.04. Now carefully you move that decimal point 2 spaces, and don't just say it's 0.4. It's 0.04. So now we just need to do that times 28. And now we're going to need to move that decimal point 2 places to the right to make this into a number that's easier to multiply, just a normal 4. All right, and then now we've done that, we just do the simpler math to end up with 112. And now since we moved the decimal point 2 places to the right, we need to do it 2 places to the left here, and we end up with our final answer of 1.12.